This podcast was brought to you in part by Dragon Shield. Use code PLAYTOWIN5 at the affiliate link down below for 5% off to help support the show.
Welcome to the Play to Win podcast, where we talk about winning in cEDH. I am Cam.
And I'm Dylan. This week we're talking about more cards from a new set that's coming out soon.
Yeah, just in case you weren't done digesting your desserts here already.
We're going to be talking about the Assassin's Creed cards. Is that what it's called?
That's correct. The Assassin's Creed cards.
That's what the set's called. The
Assassin's Creed cards. Yes.
That's how I would name it.
Do you know if this is like a set or decks or packs? Or
it's packs.
It's just packs.
I believe it's the first Universes Beyond pack situation.
Oh, okay.
I think this is the first time, because Lord of the Rings didn't have packs that were random. You could buy the decks or you could buy, right?
No, they had, Lord of the Rings had everything. Lord of the Rings was a whole set.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings had a full-blown set with packs, so
but
this is not the first of that.
This is more like an Aftermath size set.
I think it's smaller.
It's smaller, okay.
We certainly don't have as many cards to talk about this set as we do with the Lord of the Rings set.
No, and there's much more stretches in this set than there are in our normal set reviews.
Yeah, we're only going to be talking about these cards in reference to cEDH. As far as casual Commander, a ton of these cards are great. They're going to see play in a lot of really fun decks. Free Runner is really sick. The fact that it says Commander in there, so it's going to be really strong. We're just talking about cEDH, though.
Exactly. Now, before we get into any of this, we have a brief segment that we have to address here, which is called Stuff We Missed from Last Week.
Yeah, last week we revisited Modern Horizons 3 for technically the third time, sort of.
This is the third Modern Horizons 3 episode.
And we're coming back for more. There were a couple more cards that we forgot.
Typical.
Yeah.
We should start off with some of these lands that you pointed out to me.
Oh, sure. These ones are from the Commander sets, those Commander products.
Yes, that's correct. So the first one is Latp Quarry. This is a desert that taps for a colorless mana, and you can also tap it to sacrifice a creature to add 1 mana of any color, and for X, 2 mana, tapping it and sacrificing a desert.
Which it is.
It is, yes. Exile target creature card with mana value X from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. You can activate this only at sorcery speed.
This land does a couple of things that I think are really great. It can be an untapped mana of any color. Right there on its own, can be very helpful. But the fact that it sacrifices a creature makes me really want to play it in something like Cody. I've been playing Cody recently. Cody definitely wants this effect because we want Cody off the board after we do the Cody thing, so that's really nice. I also wonder if decks like Rograk decks are going to be interested in this as another way to make mana. Might not be quite as good there as it is in Cody because that sacrificing the creature is extra helpful. But the reanimation thing is also not nothing too. I think that's going to be also very powerful.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know if Rograk decks have room for it in them because they're already like down to 23 lands a lot of the time.
Yeah,
so,
and they have so many other ways to sacrifice to get a much better value than just the 1 mana.
Right, they have other lands that will already make you 2 mana.
But in Cody, that sacrificing, like I said, that sacrificing of Cody is super important. So I think in Cody, I am going to play this card. I think it's going to be good.
And being able to embalm any creature in your graveyard, like a 4 mana Dockside from your graveyard, is still going to net you mana a ton of the time.
Technically, I think it's like 5 mana because you tap itself 2
that's
mana
true.
and then X,
Yeah,
so it's sort of 5
okay.
mana. But yes, still, the 5 mana Dockside from the graveyard, especially if you sacrificed it earlier for mana, that can be really good. Bringing back Ranger Captain, there's a whole bunch of creatures. You can bring back a Thassa's Oracle, right?
Yeah, that's a creature.
It
Yeah,
has an ETB, so that can be helpful if you're playing Entomb or stuff like that. You can think about that as a land that can uncounterably basically reanimate a spell.
I think you just have to really want to sacrifice a creature like more than any other deck. I think Hulk decks, Protean Hulk decks, will consider this card as well just for that ability too. But I also think that because most of the time it's tapping for a colorless source, you kind of also have to consider this as one of your colorless land slots in your deck too. So like, are you able to use Urza Saga? Because if you're not, this might be a better option for you. But like, if you have any other colorless lands that you might want, they may still slot up higher than this.
Yeah,
but
I agree. It's going to be hard to play Ancient Tomb and Urza Saga and possibly this as well. That
and
might,
with like Emergent Zone in your deck
right,
too.
then you're starting to stretch too much. So you have to be able to cut some of those colorless lands too and value everything that this land does. But I still think it will be playable in some cEDH decks.
And your Cody brain is
Cody,
like really
yes.
working with this
Great in
because you
Cody.
don't
for sure.
You don't care about the colorless source either. Like, that's all you want is just to be able to make colorless mana. So I think this is perfect for that then too. Do you have a rating for this card?
It's tough to say in the decks that wants it. In Cody, it's a great card. It's probably somewhere like a 2.5. Some 2-color decks are going to want it. Some very specific decks are going to want it, but it's not going to be, dominating the format, I don't think.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're going to give it the rating that you said.
2.5.
2.5. The next card is Horizon of Progress. This is another land that if you tap it and pay a life, you can add a mana of any type of land you control could produce.
Reflecting Pool, basically, for the cost of a life.
For the cost of a life, yeah. So it's not already it's not
a card
great.
That doesn't see a ton of play.
However, we got a lot more words on it too. For 3 and tapping it, you can put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Okay.
I love that for casual AC, not for cEDH, but for a casual lands deck, I love a land that can put a land into play. That's awesome.
And then because it's a Horizon, for a mana and tapping it, you can sack it to draw a card.
Is Horizon in the name?
Horizon is in the name.
Is it really?
It is. It's Horizon of Progress.
Oh, that's funny.
I consider the cycle of lands that cost life to tap them for mana, but you can sack to draw a card, Horizon lands, because they're named after Horizon Canopy.
And they were also in Modern Horizons, the first one?
They were in Modern Horizons, the first one.
Double whammy on the name.
But none of the ones from Modern Horizons have the name Horizon in it, which is weird.
Real quick tangent. I think that's kind of bullshit.
I also think it's bullshit that we got this card before they finished the fucking cycle of Horizon lands.
We still have other Horizon lands that we have not have. There's no black-red one, right?
No, it's dumb because there's only 4 color pairs that we don't have.
Oh, yeah.
We have all the enemy pairs, and the only allied pairs was Horizon Canopy, the first one.
The Selesnya one. Yeah, I agree. I think words should mean stuff. I think that all of these lands should have the word Horizon in them. I think all talismans should tap for a mana of either of 2 colors and lose you life, or tap for a colorless.
And
so
as a Horizon,
talisman,
it shouldn't have this other ability for 3 mana and tapping it to put a land into play.
That's aside from the fact that I think this card is pretty good.
Why?
Because I think in a 2-color deck, it has a lot of versatility. It can draw a card. It can most often tap for mana of any color that's untapped, as long as you're like turn 2 and after. The fact that you can put other lands in, that part's not going to be super relevant. This is another one that I'm also looking at through the eyes of Cody, and Cody values those Horizon lands a lot. There's no fetch lands, there's no dual lands in Cody, and because Vampiric Tutor and Imperial Seal and the top deck tutors can be so powerful, drawing that 1 extra card is really, really good. So just it being another land that is untapped, that can sacrifice for 1 mana to draw 1 card, I think is powerful, and then it also does some other stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely like a 4 in Cody, but I think generally it's gonna be more like a 1.5 probably.
You think it's worse than the other land we just talked about?
Yeah, because it has the same Exotic Orchard problem where if you don't have another land in play, like this can't be your first land, and especially if you're a turbo deck, like you want to make sure that your lands are producing mana.
This doesn't even tap for a colorless.
No, you have to have a land. You have to have another land. So it's not even like Exotic Orchard where if you go second, it still works.
So this can't be your first land for turn, basically. First land for game.
Not unless you have other mana sources that are free.
Follow it up afterwards or something like that.
Exactly, yeah. Not only that, but it's just Reflecting Pool is just never really played in good cEDH decks.
Yeah.
Like a worse Reflecting Pool in most situations, I'm not looking for in any of my decks. However, there is that upside in Cody where you do want to top deck tutor and get the card right away. So I do understand that. I don't know if that should be a land. Maybe this should be a spell in your deck then. I don't know.
You have to definitely want all of the effects that this offers a lot for it to be even consideration. I think 1.5 might be a little harsh, but I see what you're talking about. It's not going to see play in the most powerful decks. It's definitely going to see play in the tier 2 and tier 3 decks that it specifically wants to utilize that draw effect or putting a land into play or something like that.
I could see it. I guess the only case I could see it in a 2-color deck is if you really do want to sack the land to get another draw. Like maybe Gitrog wants this just as like...
Maybe Gitrog.
Yeah, just as like another land that they can cycle through to get more cards that
Maybe
way.
Tatiova, like a Landfalls deck, if you want to be doing Landfall
you
cEDH
know what?
stuff.
Even in casual, I feel like this is a great, even like
great.
mono green Tatiova kind of card because you don't get access to any of the Horizon lands in that.
Lands that can do stuff is just, I think, really a powerful ability because it's so hard to interact with. So if you can abuse that in any way,
you just need to have space for it. Is my only thing. You just need to have space.
Yeah, and it's better to cast your spells than to have fun lands, right? I just want to cast my spells much more than having like this fun silver bullet of a land that's sometimes good.
So true.
I want to just cast my spells. That's
so
more
true.
important.
Yeah, right? Yeah. All right, so the last Modern Horizons 3 card that we want to talk about real quick is Evolution Witness, which we talked about before. We did talk about it. This is the 2 and a green 2/1 that says adapt for 1 and a green, and you adapt 2. And whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on Evolution Witness, you return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Do you remember this one, Dylan?
I do. Lion's Eye Diamond is a permanent.
Yeah, and that one, if you're in Kenrith, you have a way to repeatedly put +1/+1 counters on this guy, and then that way you can make sure that you're always getting LED back to your hand, so that LED is consistently netting you a green mana until you have infinite green mana.
And then you can start netting for the other colors after that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because whenever you put a +1/+1 counter on the creature, you return a permanent. So use some of the infinite green with Kenrith to put a +1/+1 counter on the thing that returns a Lion's Eye Diamond back to your hand. Cast it again, sack for blue.
Yeah,
use some of your infinite green, boop, boop, boop.
I was brain farting for a second, like, oh, what if you run out of infinite green? But you would just make
made
more
billions of
infinite
it.
green
Yeah.
before you run out.
Are you going to play this in Kenrith? Because this is sort of like...
Eternal Witness.
It is like Eternal Witness. I was going to say, what's the white card that I'm blanking on the name? Bomberman, the Bomberman combo.
Oh, it is basically the Bomberman combo, but you need Kenrith out in play already.
You need Kenrith out in play
like
already.
Auriok Salvagers works
Auriok
with...
Salvagers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't know why that was escaping me.
That card works without Kenrith in play. Like, I feel like this is a mana less, and I guess technically not a dead card.
This is much less of a dead card, I would say. This one can do some stuff. You can grind with this one, especially because of Kenrith with that extra mana. You can make value out of other things in your graveyard until you find this wind. You know what I mean? You can just use Kenrith, put a counter on, get any spell back, right?
Any permanent.
Any permanent, so not removal spells or tutors. That is less good.
Which, like, Kenrith already reanimates creatures, too.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
like, for a lot of times, like, the same amount of mana, you can be getting a creature back into play from your graveyard as it is to return it from your hand with Evolution Witness and then recast it. I don't necessarily think that aspect is saving you on mana. You're just getting like a bigger board this way.
It's certainly something to consider. I'm not sure that it's great enough to go in all of the decks, though.
I don't know what I'm cutting. I'm really happy with my Kenrith list right now. And
if you're all in on all the Kenrith creature combos and you just want to jam as many as possible, I certainly see this one as another one that can work with, especially if you're heavy on the permanent stuff. If you're really heavy on the more Staxy side of things and you want to buy permanent backs more often, I think this card gets better and better.
My list is not like that.
If you're playing Luris.
I actually
Luris?
was finding Luris was bad, and I cut Luris.
I think Luris is bad. But if you, in your version of the deck, if Luris is very good, this card, I think, would also be good. I think in that version of Kenrith. Kenrith is like 9 different decks.
Oh, there's a bajillion
You know what I mean?
of them. So it's hard for me to sit here with my Kenrith shoes and go, why do your Kenrith shoes look so different
Right.
than mine?
Yeah, if you have 30 creatures or if you're really heavy on the permanents, I think this card is much more interesting for that type of deck, for sure.
You know, there's Kenrith lists that play Atali in them.
That's fucking awesome.
I feel like I should be doing that.
Yes,
like
just combine the two things.
Just combine my 2 cEDH decks into one. Yeah. You can Eldritch Evolution Kenrith into Atali. Like, that's just...
Yeah. Sure.
Perfect,
Fuck it.
yeah.
I think this card's like a 2.6.
I don't remember what we gave it last time, but I think 2.6 is a good,
Whatever
a
we
good
gave
number
it last
to
time.
give it. Yeah.
Well, it'd be funny if we gave it higher than 2.6 last time, and they were like, "Oh, it combos. All right, worse."
Yeah, combo makes it
We're making all
worse.
this shit up. We don't fucking know.
Cool. Okay. So I think that means that it's time to go into the main portion of the podcast.
I'm happy that we finally got there. About 15 minutes in.
Nice. So let's talk about Assassin's Creed. Before we get into any of these cards, what's your relationship with Assassin's Creed?
Goose egg. Nothing. Not at all. I'm not really a big video game player. I have watched a couple other people play this game. Is this the one that you hop on roofs?
A lot of roof hopping.
A lot of roof hopping. Okay, that's about as far as I know. I know there's a decent amount of roof hopping.
Well, that's 70% of the game.
Now I know that there are historical figures in the game, quite a few it seems, and you can hide. It's like you're an assassin, obviously, so you can hide in stuff and you want to be sneaky or something like that.
Exactly, yeah.
What about you? Have you played the games?
I played 3.
Okay.
I played Black Flag, and I played...
Is that Pirates?
That one is Pirates. That one was my least favorite of all of them, actually.
not good.
I was bad at the ship combat.
Oh, that
and
sounds like
was-
probably a big part of it.
It was a huge part of it, yeah. Yeah, you can't throw me in a vehicle of any kind in a video
really?
game.
You don't like the vehicles?
Oh my god, the second that driving is involved in a video video game, all of my skill plummets.
Interesting. I kind of like the driving parts of the video games.
I was playing like all the Batman Arkham games, and Arkham Origins, they throw you in the Batmobile like early on, and
you're like, I'm getting out. Fuck this car.
Yeah, like 2 minutes into the game, I was like, this game's not for me. I'm done. I quit.
So you played 3. You played Black Flag,
and then I also played the most. I think it's the most recent one. Whatever one is the Viking one where you're running around England. That was the first
Assassin's
one for
Viking.
PS5. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that one. Do you know if this set contains stuff from all of the games or if it's just from like one game?
It contains things from all of the games. Every single character that you play as, I've noticed has a card. And there's going to be actually a couple of characters that you play as from the game that we were going to talk about today.
Okay, cool.
And the ones I know, I'll tell you what games that they're from.
Should we get into it?
Let's get into it. I hope you like Grixis today because we have like exclusively Grixis cards to talk about.
Awesome. Do you think that's because just blue, black, and red is just like what they offer is just good in cEDH? That's just going to happen?
Well, I think the whole Assassins thing kind of forced the blue, black, and red cards to be the best.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
So we're going to talk about Escape Detection first. This is 1 and 2 blue for an instant with free running of returning a blue creature you control to its owner's hand to return target creature to its owner's hand and draw a card.
What's free running?
Oh, good. Great question. So free running says you may cast the spell for its free running cost if you dealt combat damage to a player this turn with an assassin or a commander.
Couple things to unpack here. That returning a blue creature, that's an alternative cost. So that means you pay 0 mana and instead you return the creature to your hand. Free spells are good. We like free spells. Second thing I'm thinking, I feel like I say this a decent amount, especially recently, Yuriko. This is a potentially free-ish Yuriko spell. Bouncing your blue stuff is pretty good because you want to ninjutsu it back in. The cantrip is really nice. Is this a card that Yuriko wants?
I think that would probably be its best home. The other thing I was thinking of is maybe like a blue Timna deck, like the Esper Timna decks might want this because it's still really easy to get in with your Malcolm, or you actively want to get in with your Timna in those lists. And those decks a lot of the time like to win on their second main with Thassa's Oracle after they've seen more information from Timna draws. So this could be one where like on your second main for free, you bounce your Malcolm, get rid of the thing that's stopping you from winning, and then take it from there.
Is it like nothing to say that if you go for Thoracle Win and it fizzles, someone counters the Demonic Consultation, we have Thassa's Oracle in play, you can bounce Thassa's Oracle back to your hand by casting this and then recasting it? Is that a Christmas land that's not going to come up, or like that? I feel like that's an upside to this card.
No, I think that's an upside. Yeah, you return the Thassa's Oracle and you return your Dockside Extortionist to your hand too. So maybe this is a blue farm card even.
Maybe this is a blue farm card.
That's a stretch. There's like no room in blue farm for this card, but
it's kind of interesting that we just got a cycle of things that you have to sacrifice a blue creature, and then this one you have to bounce the blue creature to your hand, and this isn't part of a cycle though. There isn't other free spells.
Man, I wish that there was.
Yeah,
that's
blue
a
is
shame.
the only one. But yeah, I think this card is something. We did say what free running is, right?
Yeah,
and we emphasis that if a commander deals combat damage is the part of the card that we care about.
Yeah, we don't care about the assassin part for like 99.5% of the time.
I don't know why I did not read that the first time that I read the free running cards. I thought it was your assassin commander is what I thought it said for some reason.
Oh yeah, I stopped reading after assassin and went, this card's bad. Okay, yeah.
No, assassin or commander, which is kind of the casual part of me is like, that's lame. You take away from what you've given to assassins. That's lame. But the cEDH player in me is great, more powerful cards that we can
awesome.
play.
Thank you for letting me play this. Yeah.
There's a lot of commanders that want to deal damage, so this is going to be easy to turn on.
Also, it cantrips too. So like it's also like not the worst bounce effect that we've ever had. I think this is going to see more play than the blue counter spell that recently got printed. Maybe.
No. You bounce a target blue creature you control?
Return a blue creature you control to its owner's hand.
So theoretically,
to return target creature.
So if your Phantasmal Image copied a blue creature, you could return the Phantasmal Image to your hand. It doesn't target your Phantasmal Image.
That's pretty damn good.
And then but your Phantasmal Image, it has to be a copy of something that is also still blue. If image doesn't keep its blue color. But if your image is a copy of a Crom, bounce the image later to have it become a copy of a Dockside. That's another cool play pattern that might be good with this card.
Do you ever want to bounce the Gilded Drake that someone gave you back to their hand to return the creature that they bounced back to your hand and just
Maybe if you can talk really well, that's a lot of
like
that you have to talk to make the card good.
Maybe the situation for that is you do talk to them and you go, hey, this new player like Magda all of a sudden's the threat and my commander isn't. I'm gonna get my commander back so that you can take Magda.
Yeah, that's tough. That's
bad.
Yeah,
don't play around that. So don't put this in your deck for that reason.
This card's close. Specific decks I think will enjoy it. I give it around 2.
I'm gonna give it a 2.
Yeah.
We're talking way too much about this card.
Free cards are interesting. Moving on.
Loyal Inventor is 2 and a blue for a 2/3 with Vigilance. It's a human artificer, notably, because when it enters the battlefield, you search your library for an artifact, reveal it, and then shuffle. Put it into your hand if you control an assassin. Otherwise, put that card on top of your library.
I put this one on here more of as in the future, this card could be good.
I'm pretty sure I put it on here, but you can think that as much as you want.
I thought I put it on here. I did type it in and press enter.
Did I delete it?
Are there 2 copies, maybe?
There was a singular copy.
Oh, I don't know. Well, sorry, maybe you did too. I don't know, but I at least
All right,
I typed it in.
I meant to put it on here at
Okay.
least, and maybe I didn't.
Because I remember thinking that this card is bad now, but it will be good later. It could be good if we get an assassin commander. This card is really, really good. A 3 mana, find any artifact right to your hand. I think that's a good rate. Right now, there's really no assassins I think that can take advantage of it.
Well, we are going to be talking about a couple of commanders a little bit later on the podcast.
That are assassins.
There's one that I think where it might actually be really good in. If you can turn this into a fabricate on a body that might actually still utilize the body aspect later, I think this could be really good. I think that's asking a lot for this card. The decks that really want to find an artifact, I don't know that they want to find an artifact so bad that they're willing to personal tutor it on top of their library. If you're trying to find a win condition, you're painting yourself as the threat in that case then too.
The only thing I can think of is like maybe if you're playing Tevishsat or Timna or a way to draw a card at will afterwards. So like it's okay that you're Imperial sealing the artifact because you have a way to draw it right away. That's still not a great cEDH card. The real part we want is the consistent find it to your hand. So if there's a 2 mana assassin that you maybe want to play as your commander, maybe this card gets a little bit better.
Yeah, maybe there is a 2 mana assassin that we can play as our commander that we'll talk about later.
It's close. Is it top table cEDH? I'm not sure yet. That 3 mana body for any artifact into your hand, that's a rate we haven't seen yet. So if you can pull that off, that might be something.
Well, then let's move on.
I'm going to give it a 2.
I'm probably going to give it a 1.5.
1.5, okay.
Even if it's really good, like that's a specific deck you're playing. All right, Crystal Skull ISU Spyglass is 2 and 2 blue for a legendary artifact that says you may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may play historic lands and cast historic spells from the top of your library, and it also taps for a blue mana. There are some decks that play Mystic Forge in cEDH, and I feel like a blue better than Mystic Forge is pretty good.
Harder to cast, but I definitely agree. It is better in other ways. Mystic Forge can exile a card from the top, though.
That's true, but it doesn't let you play a land, I don't believe. I think it's just lets you cast colorless spells, but this would also, like, let you cast other legendary creatures that you might come up against. It lets you cast every artifact in your deck, which is really nice.
This is definitely one that if you're playing Mystic Forge, I think you add this card into your deck as well. If you're not playing Mystic Forge, this card's probably not great, right?
Do you think that there are any decks that, like, weren't playing Mystic Forge but might go, oh, like there's a couple of extra things that this hits that might make me want to play this?
Sisay is the first thought, but that's wrong. As I'm putting Sisay together more and paying attention to that deck more, this is not what Sisay would be after, I don't think.
What about Elsha? Like, is this an Elsha card?
This might be an Elsha card, but I think Elsha does play Mystic Forge, or at least some lists do.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess that's true. Like, it's another way that you can Elsha without having Elsha.
Yeah, which I think is good. I think you want more redundancy.
You want some
like
number
that.
Of that, yeah. Do you cut Mystic Forge for this card in that case?
I don't think so. I think the colorlessness of Mystic Forge is really helpful in artifact heavy decks. You want to be able to cast it off of Soul Ring, Mana Vault type of mana often, I think.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
But I mean, if you're also in blue, I think having 2 is good. If you're in those type of artifact strategies, you want to double up on stuff a lot, and I think this is a second effect that you want to have.
It reads really good. It might not play as good as I think it's reading, but I think it reads really good. So my eye's definitely on it. I'm going to give it a 4. That's really high. I'm going to give it, I didn't lock it in, so it's okay. Stop giving me that look.
You didn't let go of the chess piece yet.
I didn't, no. My hand's still on it. I'm going to give it a 3.
I like 2.3 for me. 2.3,
Okay.
I think.
I think it's going to see more play than any other card we've talked about so far.
Okay. For me,
Not today. Like, I think that Evolution Witness is going to see the most play out of all the cards we've talked about so far today.
yeah, and the land, maybe one of the lands, maybe not the lands. Yeah, it's hard to say.
Move past it. Move
We're
past
moving
it.
past it.
Eagle Vision is next. This is 4 and a blue for a sorcery. Why are we talking about this? It has free running of 1 and a blue, and it says draw 3 cards.
Yeah.
Well, hear me out. If
Okay.
you can draw 3 cards for 2 mana, is that worth it?
That's a good rate.
You play fish, and sometimes you draw less cards than that for more mana, and you're always happy with that card.
Yes.
Is that a bad comparison?
We are in Orcish Bowmaster world. We are in Engines Are Better Than Cantrips world.
Oh, yeah, we don't play Brainstorm anymore.
We don't play Brainstorm.
Okay, this card's a 0. We
It's a 0. Yuriko.
Yuriko would scoop to this.
Yeah.
Because if there's Bowmaster in play, this is exactly
Really
enough
bad.
to
This is
kill
really
the
bad.
Yuriko.
Yeah, but if Bowmaster's not in play, this is the only deck that like this plays into what Yuriko wants, which is big mana cost and cheap attackers getting this turn this on really easily. That's I think the only deck.
Wow, someone got hired at Wizards like 2 years ago and really loves Yuriko, and it's just been like shoving that
At this
deck
point,
full of good stuff.
A lot of these cards that we're talking about, they're probably not going to end up in Yuriko, but Yuriko is the only deck that can really utilize these type of cards with big mana values and that you can actually get cheaper, especially if you have creatures in play that are attacking. Will it make the final cut? Probably not. 1.5?
Yeah, 1.5.
1.5.
Let's talk about another card that is an attacker here. This is Desmond Miles. I know this guy. This guy's from the 3rd game.
Okay, which you played, you said?
He's the guy who goes into the Assassin's Creed and becomes the assassin in colonial times, colonial American times.
Interesting. The Assassin's Creed is a place that you go.
Well, no. You go into the Animus, I want to say it is. It's like a virtual reality game that
Video
you go
game.
back.
Video game inside of a video game.
It's like a video. Yeah, he's like playing a video game where he's going back and he's like living the life that this other assassin was, and they're finding out information that will help them with the current problem that they're facing.
Okay.
Don't ask me any more questions.
No questions.
All right.
We're not
I
asking
told you
questions.
everything. All right. So for 1 and a black, Desmond Miles is a legendary creature, human assassin, a 1/3 with menace, and gets +1/+0 for each other assassin you control and each assassin card in your graveyard. And when Desmond Miles deals combat damage to a player, surveil X, where X is the amount of damage it dealt to that player. So this is a bad, but it could be good in a Tymna deck that is just looking for another 2-mana evasive attacker that can get in some value before you get your draws to make sure you're drawing what you need.
Interesting. This is a blue card?
This is a black card. We've
Black
moved on to
card.
the
You said
black
it was
section
on
of the
black
podcast
cards.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 and a black for a 1/3 with menace.
This doesn't seem very good.
Great. All right, it gets a 1. Okay.
A 1.
That was the scenario that I could see it
What's
in.
the scenario again? Run it past me.
In like a Tymna deck,
All right,
if you get in with it while you're Tymna-ing, the damage trigger will happen before the Tymna stuff goes off, so you'll have a chance to surveil so that you can like kind
How
of
much do you
fix your
surveil?
Tymna draws. X, where X is the amount of damage that Desmond dealt.
Which is 1.
It's a 1/3, but if you have any other assassins, it could be more.
0.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
She also says 0. Essie, that's a multicolor card. Hold up. All right, let's talk about Chain Assassination next then.
Yes.
So this is 2 and 2 black for an instant with free running 1 and a black that says destroy target creature. If another creature died this turn, draw a card.
Sure, yeah. So this is basically 2 mana sorcerer speed, destroy creature.
Oh, yeah,
It's
is sorcery speed.
If you want to do it for free running, it's got to
It's
be sorcery
sorcery
speed.
speed,
I
yeah.
mean, you can technically do it in your combat step after you've dealt damage still. Technically, you can.
But because it is combat damage, it's not like any kind of damage. So it's not like if you have a commander that like taps to deal damage, oh, all of a sudden I can chain assassination at instant speed.
Got to be combat.
Not gonna work.
Overall, this card still, even that 2 mana, I think is too much. If this was 1 mana, if it reduced down to 1, maybe a little bit more. And even then, the cantrip is super nice, but there's just better removal spells that we have access to.
Sometimes it replaces itself, which is why I considered it. But yeah, I think you're right. I don't think you're ever cutting something for this.
This is another one that like Yuriko again, right? But like, I still want Dismember over this. I
yeah,
think.
and the problem with these free running cards that are removal is that a lot of the time you want to use them before you go to combat so that you
Right.
can get like your free running bonuses a lot. So like they do kind of fight with themselves a lot of the time.
Yep, I agree. This one's another 0 for me.
Another 0. Wow. Thanks, Assassin's Creed. You're
Them's the breaks, kids.
Them's the breaks. Well, we're going to move on to red, and we actually have a pretty interesting one to talk about. This is Alexios Demios of Cosmos. This is 3 in a red for a 4/4 legendary human berserker with trample. Alexios attacks each combat if able, can't be sacrificed, and can't attack its owner. And at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player gains control of Alexios, untaps it, and puts a +1/+1 counter on it. It gains haste until the end of turn. We missed Slicer originally, and we're not missing Slicer 2.0 on the channel.
Well, to be fair, I don't know that we actually did a set review on the Transformers cards, did we?
No, we didn't.
But you're right. We never talked about Slicer when it came out. This is Slicer 2.0. I think I like Slicer more, right?
Why do you like Slicer more? Because
Slicer,
there's a 3-mana version?
You can play it for the 3-mana version with Mana Crypt. You can get it on turn 1 much quicker. And turn 1 is like everything in Slicer. You want to push everything for that. Jewel Lotus, etc.
Yeah. You just put this in Slicer,
But I think you put this in Slicer as just like another way to like try to get damage through.
Yeah, I think so. And just if you're giving away 2 Slicers a turn, that's fucking nutty.
That's a lot of damage that's
you
going
should just
around.
always be doing that, I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very great, and it's going to stack up a lot of damage. It definitely sits in a strange power level of, in a lot of casual pods, this is probably going to be a touch too strong.
You know what? This has trample. Does that affect anything?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it makes. I still don't think it's better than Slicer because I think that the cheapness of is what you want for a Slicer. Well, I'd have to do the math. Does this get Slicer's double strike, right?
Slicer stays the same size all the time. And at the beginning of each player's upkeep, Alexios always gets bigger.
One bigger.
So,
but Slicer has double strike, so it's 6.
but by the time you get Alexios back, it's a 7/7. And then gets even bigger as you keep passing them around.
There is certainly a math that I think probably Slicer's better at first, and then obviously if this goes on longer, it's much better.
I think trample also makes this a little bit more annoying because Slicer loses because Slicer loses when players can start talking to themselves and just chumping with like their mana dorks that aren't doing anything anymore, and like really kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
When they work together?
Yeah.
When they collaborate, when they
That's a great word to use. Yeah, those are great words to use. Yeah. So that's how Slicer loses.
Tons of them.
That's a huge advantage that I don't have. That's something that Alexios can deal with a lot more easily, is that there's no chumping. By the time Alexios is a 9/9, you're still taking 8 commander damage consistently. This might be better than Slicer.
This might be better than Slicer. Either way, it's a second Slicer, and I think they both go in the same deck.
One's definitely in the command zone, and the other one's definitely in the 99.
I still think, even though the commander damage is relevant, I still think it'll put out enough damage that you want both of these effects in a deck like that. Probably that Sardine Avenger too, maybe. I don't know if actually you're doing all that type of damage stuff. Maybe you're just really going more on the
probably the same
damage.
thing, where like you just start putting equipments in, like you give like the swords of X and Y so you can give them protection and make them harder to block.
Interesting.
You know what is really great too? There's the commander's armor that gives it protection from all the colors that it doesn't have,
which is a lot of colors.
Yeah, right. So there's a lot of good equipment that you can
Commander's
put on to
plate, I think, is the card.
Bada bing, bada boom. You got that right.
The thing that this card is going to be compared to a lot, just because it's mono red, besides Slicer, is Godo and Magda.
Yeah,
is it better than Godo and Magda?
No, it's not.
Probably not.
Against the people that don't know how to play against the Slicer style of decks, like they'll fall to this thing the first game that you play, and then you'll never win again.
Which is spread out the damage. Is how to beat these decks, is to spread out the attacks. Don't pile up on one player. That's what they want. Spread the damage out to keep everyone alive.
Exactly. That's the best way to deal with the Slicer kind of decks. Whereas like Magda, I feel like even when you try to target Magda down a ton, it can still do like so much. I don't think that these decks have the same kind of resiliency. So I don't think it's going to be the new best mono red thing to do. I think it'll be like the new 4th best mono red thing to do.
An interesting new weapon that's been added to the arsenal of cEDH decks, I think.
Exactly. That makes it a 2.5.
3 for me.
Look at that. Okay, there we go. Shall we move on to the multicolor shenanigans?
No white cards?
No white cards.
No green cards?
No green cards.
None at all. There are, I think there was a couple casual cards I was excited about for green, but yeah, none for cEDH.
That's for a different podcast to talk about.
The 3-mana free running like land, get a couple lands in play.
Oh, that one's great.
That one's going to be neat, but yeah, we won't talk about that here.
So Eevee Fry and Jacob Fry are partner with cards. So Eevee Fry is 1 and a blue for a 2/1 legendary human assassin that for 1 and tapping it allows you to draw a card, then discard a card. And when you discard a creature card this way, target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. And Jacob is 2 and a black for a 3/2 human assassin that says whenever 1 or more assassins you control deal combat damage to a player, exile up to 1 target assassin card or card with free running from your graveyard. If you do copy it, you may cast the copy. So this is here because this is a Demir color pairing with partner.
Yeah.
That technically Eevee Fry is an outlet with our favorite combo.
Isochron Scepter.
Yes.
Yes, you can loop through your deck.
Yeah, you can loot through your whole deck this way, and sometimes if you're playing some bad free running cards, Jacob will be able to let you get them for free from your graveyard.
You can get assassins back.
Or assassins too, right? So if you're also playing some other bad cards in your deck.
I looked it up. There's one best assassin, I think.
Oh, yes. Tell me about it.
We're going to talk about an assassin that can go in these weird looking for an assassin decks. I think Calidus Assassin is actually not so bad. This one's from 40k. 4 blue and a black for a human shapeshifter assassin 3/3 with flash. And it has, you may have Calidus Assassin enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it has, when this creature enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 other target creature with the same name as this creature. So it's like a weird clone that can sometimes be a dockside, sometimes copy some big commander like an Atraxer or something like that. It's not the best, but if you're looking for an assassin to do something cool besides Massacre Girl, I think this is the one that I'm interested in.
Oh, Massacre Girl is actually pretty interesting because that would like shut off most Nadu decks right there.
That's very true, yeah.
All right, so yeah, I could see this if you're like specifically playing those 2 assassins. Those are really the only ones that I'd want. I'd mostly be
some silver bullets.
Yeah, I'd mostly be playing this as a Demir Isochron Scepter deck that is looking to get some extra value out of those instead of playing Vohar, which might not be getting you extra value.
Yeah, I was just going to say Vohar is probably the other best option of this style of deck at this point, which is probably, for the most part, unfortunately, an outdated.
It's a low bar.
It's a low bar. At this point, the Demir decks, I think, are really just on consultation stuff. You don't really need to be doing the Scepter stuff. And if you're doing consultation Demir, Talion's your one.
Yeah, I think this is still worse than Talion. Yeah.
Let's give it a 2.5.
2. That's generous. I'm going to give it a 2. Yeah.
2 it is.
Ezio. His name's in Italian, I think, so I'm going to mess this up. Ezio Auditore da Forenz.
Nice. Good attempt.
This is a 3/2 legendary creature human assassin for 1 and a black. It has menace and says assassin spells you cast have free running black. Who cares?
This is the one that if you want those silver bullets, like the Massacre Girl or the clone thing that I mentioned, this one is like where
this is the good one.
2 mana for those effects is much different.
Yeah. It also says that when Ezio deals combat damage to a player, you may pay Wooburg if that player has 10 or less life. When you do, that player loses the game. All of this to me means nothing. What this is a 2-mana Wooburg commander that lets you play a 5-color deck focused around Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation, Underworld Breach, and also be able to play Deflecting Swat, Deadly Relic, and Fierce Guardianship in there.
Lurrus in the command zone, maybe?
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing, is that you also get to play Lurrus in your companion zone. You get to play Mox Amber because that's actively good. So we've been talking about, like, is this better than Jared Carthalion?
I think that's his name.
Not. It's a Carthalion. I don't think it's Jared.
Jensen.
That's what it is. Jensen Carthalion. I think we've decided that the answer is no, because this card doesn't let you play Bring to Light.
Right, yeah. Bring to Light is a powerful card, and being able to turn your mana vaults and whatnot into Bring to Light mana is something, but needing to cast a green-white creature is much different than needing to cast a black and generic creature.
Yeah, I have liked this a little bit better for that reason, that like all of my mana sources are going to be much easier, and like I don't have to fetch really weirdly in order to get my commander out.
Realistically, I feel like Najeela is probably still a better option for this style of strategy of a 5-color deck that just you want the commander to do something. I think I would rather the infinite mana in the command zone over like a Lurrus or a 1 mana cheaper on a card that doesn't really do a ton. That activation ability, I don't think it's going to come up a ton.
I think this deck is for you if you're already playing Jensen Carthalion, but you really want to play Jeweled Lotus.
Or if you really want to try to do combat damage stuff where that activated ability can be something where you just have to deal 30 to them rather than 40.
Oh, maybe, you know what you do? You play Maskwood Nexus so that every card in your deck is an assassin, and then all of your creatures have free running black after you deal combat damage, and you just make a ton of black mana, and then you just
What about the Sorin Planeswalker, the original one? Target player life goes down to 10.
Oh, so you play that
For 6 mana.
for 6 mana, and then you deal combat damage to that player.
And then you pay another 5 mana.
Wooburg specifically.
We're at 11 mana plus the 2 mana you played previous turn to cast the commander.
How do you beat this combo? I don't know if you can.
A soft breeze.
This is
I'm going to give this card a 3.5.
I think 3.5 is exactly what it gets.
It does some things.
Next is Basim Ibn Ishak. This is a legendary creature human assassin that's a 2/2. Whenever you cast a historic spell, you draw a card. And Basim can't be blocked this turn. This ability triggers only once each turn. That sucks. And whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you put a +1/+1 counter on him.
How much mana is it again?
This is just a blue and a black.
Just a blue and a black.
So this is really cheap, and it is a way that you can draw a card. I would say this is good if you have a way to cast historic spells consistently on other players' turns. If you can't do that, there are an infinite number of better blue-black commanders you can play. I think this is a 1 if you can't do that, and a 3 if you can do that. So either way, it's still pretty low.
Triggers off historics.
Historics, yes.
It is. I read this card at first. It reads so good until you get to the end. Whenever you cast a historic spell, draw a card, right? That sentence is on it.
That sentence is on it, right?
Holy fuck, this is the best thing ever.
This is
and
so
you,
good,
And you keep
yeah.
reading, it's like, yeah, not so great.
I guess it works well, like, if you can reset him.
Maybe. A 2.
Does that work with, like, Displacer Kitten and something?
I guess it could. Yeah, I guess it could. Cast a Lotus Petal, draw a card, displace your kitten, target your guy, flicker him.
Great.
And then what, though?
And then,
You need something else to get the Lotus Petal back?
you don't need an extra piece if you're going through, like, this loop with, like, the fairy or something,
No,
right?
you already got it.
Okay, this is bad. Moving on.
Moving on.
Okay. The next card then is Altair Ibn La Ahud. This is red, white, and black for a 3/3 legendary human assassin with first strike. Whenever it attacks, exile up to 1 target assassin creature card from your graveyard with a memory counter on it. Then, for each creature card you own in exile with a memory counter on it, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of it. Exile those tokens at the end of combat.
What's that Maskwood Nexus card do?
It says that you name a creature type and then all creatures are that chosen type.
Is that good here?
Yeah, because, like, if...
Is that good in CEDH here?
Yeah, because what I like about it is that it's then for each creature card you own in exile. So the more that you attack and the more creatures you get, like, if the first one's Dockside, then you get the Dockside copy. Then the next turn, it's Dockside and Temur Sabertooth. And then, well, no, you don't win the game.
Not
But,
Temur
like,
Sabertooth. You'd need a Mardu card.
well, even then, they're copies. So, like, you can't flicker and, like, bounce them infinitely. However, like, you just keep, like, getting value, and, like, the next one is Ranger Captain, and then, like, you have every single turn you're making Docksides or Ranger Captains, and it seems really good.
To be honest with you, when I read this card the first time, I did not read the word assassin in there. I thought it could just bring back any old creature,
Yeah,
and
honestly-
it turned it into an assassin. It's not what it does.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, the word assassin is ruining all of these cards.
All these cards.
Yeah. Like, you look at them and you're like, oh, this is badass. And then you go, oh, well,
many
because
hoops.
it's, yeah, an assassin.
Too many hoops to jump through.
Exactly, yeah. So it's going to end up not being great. I think I'm going to give it a 1.5.
I'm going to give it fun.
Oh, that's a great grade.
I don't want to, I'm too many bad ratings, fun. I'm going to give it
a fun, yeah. All right. Well, let's change tunes here then. Because the next one is Mary Reid and Bonnie. This is a blue and a red for a 3/3 legendary creature human assassin pirate with haste. You can tap it to loot, draw a card and discard a card, and whenever you discard an island, pirate, or vehicle, you get to create a tapped treasure token. This is also an Isochron Scepter outlet. However, this was the card that I was saying could maybe be a Loyal Inventor card.
Loyal Inventor card.
Yeah, because it's a human assassin pirate. So the Loyal Inventor becomes Fabricate when you have Mary, Reid, and Ambani out. So in that case, like, you can go get the Isochron Scepter right into your hand, and maybe it's good there if you're like trying to turbo Isochron Scepter.
Yeah, I like that. I like that it also makes the treasure, which is nice. I like that the Isochron can untap the treasure, which can be helpful, I suppose. It does a little bit of a lot of things kind of badly, but those commanders can be okay. You know what I mean? We've seen that before, where it is sort of a win condition, it's sort of mana, it's sort of cards, and all of that together means it's pretty good if you like this type of play style.
A lot of these commanders need to be able to untap, and them having haste, I think, also makes it so that you don't even have to like play it and then pass a turn and then Scepter win. You can just make infinite mana and then go for her.
I like that it's helpful since you're doing Underworld Breach probably things also.
Oh, definitely.
Since you're
yeah.
in blue-red, it's helpful to fill up your graveyard, which is nice. Like I said, there's a lot of things kind of poorly, but a lot of things nonetheless, so it's a card to look at, I think.
If we were doing a gameplay episode for Assassin's Creed, they would definitely be one of the commanders that we would consider. But unfortunately, due to timing, we're not going to be able to get a gameplay episode.
No, it's just not going to work. It's too many sets. We're talking about them instead.
Yeah, exactly. Also, like, there's only really 2 decks that we would have that would be good.
Right.
So
this one's a 2.2.
2.2. There's too many of these kind of commanders already that combo with Isochron Scepter.
We just got other options recently too in, what's her name? Cowboy girl.
Oh, Jessie.
Jessie. No.
Yeah, from Toy Story 2.
Nope.
Shia Jun is 1 and a blue and a red for a 3/3 legendary creature human assassin. It has Leap Strike, which says as long as it's your turn, it has flying and first strike, and it also has Rope Dart. It says tap 2 untapped artifacts you control to deal 1 damage to each opponent. This is also an Isochron Scepter outlet.
Yes, but not only that, this is also a Dockside Loop outlet. If you make infinite treasures, you can tap them all to deal damage to your opponents. That's pretty good.
That is pretty good too, yeah.
That's a combo that's more suited for 2024 that I think is more playable.
Again, another reason why we're not doing a gameplay episode is because we would have 2 blue-red decks that do the same fucking thing.
Yeah, you could play Crown Jeska if you want an outlet in the command zone in Izzet colors for Dockside Loop, and that deck doesn't see a ton of play, but
there's no upside to this versus
there's no upside to this versus that.
Yeah,
okay,
because
you're right.
I was going to say, like, well, this will get flying and first strike, so maybe you, like, suit it up with equipment. But, like, Crown already has flying and has more power and toughness already. So, like, if you are trying to beat face, Crown's the way to go. It has haste as well, too. And that deck just also has card draw in the command zone, which this is notably going to lack. I think this is going to be a 1. I just don't think you're ever going to be in a scenario where you're going to want this.
1 for me as well.
Nice. Let's talk about a real fucking person. Socrates, our Athenian teacher. This is 1, a white and a blue for a 0/4 legendary creature human advisor. He has Defender, and he has hexproof as long as he's untapped, but he also has Socratic Dialogue. He has an ability named after himself. You can tap him so that until the end of turn, target creature gains if this creature would deal combat damage to a player, prevent that damage. This creature's controller and that player each draw half that many cards rounded down.
This seems weird at first, but it is a strange way to kind of play like combat control on the board. If you have things like Smothering Tithe and Narset Part of Veils, that ability can get even more in your favor. This card's, I don't know, it's close. It can draw a lot of cards.
If you can break parity on it, like you said with like Narset, or if you can find room for a Notion Thief deck to have this as well, like if you're going for that good old Timna Crown
Opus Thief.
That's the strategy I'm thinking of. Yeah, right? Like if this, I think, goes in something like that. Outside of that, I don't know where you would see it. Like giving your opponent's cards is just so detrimental a lot of the time. Yeah.
It feels strange to play a card like this in the 99 of something, though. It just feels a little bit too slow for cEDH on the whole.
Oh, generally, yeah.
But if you have enough ways to break parity, if Hull Breaker, what's the card called?
Hull Breaker Horror?
No.
Hull Breacher.
Hull Breacher. If Hull Breacher gets unbanned, this one's a lot better.
Oh, if Hull Breacher gets unbanned, you could play this as the commander, I would say.
I would say, yeah. And which also means if this type of, if you get 1 or 2 more of this type of effect, if your opponent would draw a card instead they don't, don't and you gain something instead, then this commander would become like a real commander, I think.
I'm really sad. Like, look at all of the cool things we're missing out on because Hull Breacher is banned.
All the things we could have had. Due to where we're sitting right now, I think this is a 1.8. But if a couple things change, this could be 3.5.
This could go up to a 5 if we get the right things.
Sure.
All right, the next card we're going to talk about is the Animus. So this is 2 mana for a legendary artifact that says at the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 target legendary creature card from a graveyard with a memory counter on it. And you can tap it so that until your next turn, target legendary creature you control becomes a copy of target creature card in exile with a memory counted, activated only at sorcery speed. I thought that this could like make your thing turn into something good, but it can't. Like
only legendary creatures?
Only legendary creatures.
Not assassins though.
Not assassins, which is good, but like you can't get enter the battlefield triggers off of this like I thought you could.
Only legendary creatures.
Only legendary creatures.
0.
All right, yeah, this card's bad. I might not even include it in the podcast. All right, Smoke Bomb is 3 mana for an artifact with flash that says all creatures have Shroud. And at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Smoke Bomb. When you do, target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. This is an awesome new tech to get around Nadu. It's like they knew that we needed a way for other non-modern formats to deal with the modern threat.
Yeah, all creatures gain Shroud?
All creatures gain Shroud,
Your opponent's creatures, too.
Your opponent's creatures, too, which means that you can't activate abilities and target the things that Nadu's trying to do.
That's true. This is something that's pretty good against Nadu. This card's interesting. 3 mana is a little bit much, but using the Shroud to obviously protect your own things can be really good, especially if you're utilizing that evasive thing on the next turn, if you're playing Tymna, Yuriko, something like that.
It also stops your opponent from looping Dockside, too, which is really funny because they can't target Dockside to return it.
It does do a lot of things. This is like, is this good in like a Urza deck where you're like really like into the artifact stuff?
That's where I'd want to see it, because the problem is that 3 mana is just way too expensive. Like, I think this is I play at my local game store, and there's a lot of Nadu running around right now, and my Urza deck just needs another way to be able to survive a turn so that I can win.
I think this is great for that. It'll see play in a certain amount of specific artifact-based decks. It can stop specific things. Overall, probably a little too specific, a little too expensive, but when you cast it, it's going to be great.
Yeah, you might be making your deck worse by trying to silver bullet in a bad card for these specific decks too. So
yeah, but if it stops enough things, if it stops the Dockside loops and it stops Kiki Jiki lines also.
Yes, that's
stops
true.
Dual Caster Mage. All creatures have Shroud, including the tokens that you're trying to copy.
Honestly, dude,
stops most
this
lines.
Is a huge bummer then too, because now like what creature-based combo do you want to do to protect yourself then? Like, is there anything that you would want to use this aggressively so that you're safe throughout your combo? All of the creature combos that I'm thinking of involve targeting the creature then at some point,
yeah.
Between like Kiki Jiki or like Quirion Ranger Ashaya, like all of this different stuff that comes up with like...
Najeela? No, Derevi untaps permanents. It says creatures get Shroud though, right?
It's all creatures get Shroud.
Yeah, Derevi would untap the permanents, the lands and stuff. I think Najeela can still win through this.
Okay. There's no way I'm putting this in Najeela. Like, it's no bad cards Najeela. I have to rename the deck if I put this card in.
Kind of specific. I'm still going to give this one like a 2.9. I think what it does is pretty unique, and I think I might see some play.
I'm going to give it a 2.7 so that it averages out to a 2.8. Let's talk about our final card here then. This
one's cool.
Apple of Eden. I agree. This is the ISU Relic for 4 mana. You get a legendary artifact that you can tap and pay 4 life and sack it to look at target opponent's hand and exile those cards face down. You may play those cards this turn, and mana of any type can be spent to cast them. Until end of turn, whenever you play a land or cast a spell this way, its owner draws a card, and at the beginning of the next end step, return the exiled cards to their owner's hand. Only activate this at sorcery speed.
Is this a way to break out of mid-range hell?
This is so funny. You go into your turn, and you're like, this isn't a window for me.
The Ristic Study player already drew 15 cards.
But then you were like, wait a minute, I had Apple of Eden in play last turn. Now I get to tap it, take their 15 cards, and I have access to all of them now.
You can tap it right away?
You can tap it right away. it's 4 mana to cast it and then do the ability. So like
4 minutes to do the ability also?
no,
Just 4 minutes total.
yeah. So if you are doing it right away,
You maybe spent all your mana.
it's a big investment to then still be able to cast other things after.
We've never had a card like this though that lets you just basically straight up cast the spells out of players' hands, like in regular non-silver border Magic.
It almost, I feel like, is going to incentivize me as an opponent against it to just run the cards out of my hand, because I don't want to be the target. I don't want to have 7 cards all the time and like kind of force you to choose me, especially like if I'm trying to sculpt, which is a huge problem.
4 mana is a little bit much, but that ability to take a player who's been drawing a ton of cards and just use their whole hand, the fact that you give them extra cards, it's kind of like a who cares, especially if they've drawn a bunch already. Okay, they had 30, now they have 40, whatever. But if you get to cast 10 spells, you won the game. Do you know what I mean? So I think that this card can be good in specific decks that can find that artifact. If you're playing other cards that also look for artifacts, if you're playing other ways to find the One Ring and you want to be able to also find this as another option, I feel like that can be really cool.
Oh yeah, Tezzeret the Seeker can just put it into play right away.
Yes, yeah. So if you're playing things like Tezzeret, if you're playing the Transmute Artifact type of cards, I think this is another like artifact that you can find that can do something very powerful. Magda
could want this because you could still have mana to do stuff afterwards with it then too.
I think Magda might want something like this. It's a shame that sorcery speed. Can you imagine if it was instant? Holy hell, it'd be so good.
Oh, it'd be nutty. Yeah.
But I think that's okay. I think it needs to be nerfed a little bit. I think this card is going to be something. I think this is one of the cards that I'm more excited about. Will it see a ton of play? I'm not positive. 4 mana is a lot, and you still have to cast all that other shit. But I think the ceiling on this card is crazy high. I'm going to give this like a 3.5.
Yeah, me too. I'm really hopeful that this card does something in cEDH. I would love for this to like at least have a home in like maybe Arkham Daxon, like another deck that is actively cheating artifacts into play. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. But yeah, 3.5 I think is what we'll give it here.
Overall, I don't think this set offers a ton to cEDH, which is fine. We just had Modern Horizons 3, which I do think offered a chunk to a lot of decks in cEDH. So I think it's good for the format to settle for a second and a half before we get to Bloomborough. But a lot of these cards are super cool. I'm excited that they're printed. Even though I don't play Assassin's Creed, the set seems very fun.
I'm excited that a lot of people are excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
I don't really like Assassin's Creed games. There are a lot of unfun, horrible mobility for me.
I was thinking about getting Diablo 3 for the Switch when I go to the beach this week. You ever played Diablo?
Diablo 3 is one of the worst Diablos you could play. I've heard Diablo 2 and 4 are spectacularly better. If you're looking for something to put a lot of time into while you're at the beach, Diablo 3 will be great.
It will be great.
I played it a wee little bit, but it's a great game if you're just like are looking for something to put time into. Like you're a dude that will like run around and you'll like collect a ton of different stuff. It's an RPG kind of base game, basically. I think you'll have a ton of fun with it still.
But it's not as good as 2 and 4.
It's not as good as 2 and 4. I think a lot of the Diablo community will say, I've never played 2 or 4, but I would say that would be a good way to go. Yeah. What made you decide Diablo 3?
I just saw a clip from Diablo, and it looked awesome.
Which Diablo did you see a clip from?
I don't know. It was like a movie scene, basically.
Ah, that's cool.
Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so on Patreon, like our $100 patrons.
Very Khan, Olden Groomby, Oddsetter Ryan, Gecko21, Caleb Ritchie, Zach Hartley, Kajo Alex, Sean in the Ice, Mark Cirillo, SoCal Acura, Stormageddon, Luke Cook, Demon of Rosgrees, Peter Stewart, Cornell Wild, Uncle Butts, Nick Foles, Goto9, Quadja A. Hamid, Lauren Kynal, and Baby Jeebus.
If you want to buy our merch, you can buy our merch. PlayToWinMTG.com.
Thanks, Dragon Show, for supporting the show. Check out our affiliate link down below and code PlayToWin5 for all of your Play to Win Dragon Shield needs.
Follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram for more content.
Thanks so much for watching.
See you next time. Or listening.
Mystic Muffin Man, Nick Saxby, Jacob Bauer, Reactive, Tyler Watson, Brian Barrington, Zachary Coulson, Tyler H, X Tyler the Tree X, Mulcraft, Driving Crooner, Jabaha, Mace the Ace, Dalton Poteet, Hobogos, Justin, Man Solo, Pedro, Jacob Depp, Michael Below, Jan Wildfang, Thomas Bueno, and David Nelson.
Can you stop recording real quick for me? And record again. Battery's about to die, so we just have that chunk saved.
Oh, good. Okay. I thought you were going to say it's not recording.
It was just blinking red and it's about to die, and I don't want to lose that whole clip. I'll say my part.